Collector's Compass is presented by All Touch Case, a premium display and protection solution designed to showcase your cards while keeping them safe. At Collectors MD, we encourage our community to collect with intention. That means displaying your cards how you want to, not how the hobby tells you you have to. That's where All Touch stands out. Their magnetic card cases use specially engineered magnets that protect your cards while allowing you to stack and link them for clean organization and unique displays. It gives you real control over how your collection looks and feels. The cases are built with a durable polycarbonate shell and a soft internal cavity, so your cards stay protected without sacrificing presentation. Whether you're working with paper, chrome, autos, or thicker patch cards, they offer sizes that fit your collection. At the end of the day, it's about protecting what you've built and displaying it in a way that feels like yours. Use code CollectorsMD for 15% off your order. And big thanks to All Touch for supporting the show. Collect, protect, it's a peace of mind. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Collector's Compass, the official podcast of Collectors MD, where we explore the intersection of collecting, mental wellness, intentional engagement, and the evolving culture surrounding the modern hobby. I'm your host, Alyx, founder of Collectors MD, and today we're talking about something that I genuinely believe will shape the future of this hobby more than almost anything else, the next generation. Over the past week, I had the opportunity to provide official media coverage at Fanatics Fest in New York City. And one observation stayed with me throughout the entire weekend: the incredible number of kids in attendance. Everywhere you looked, there were young collectors opening packs with their parents, negotiating trades, walking the show floor with backpacks full of cards, learning how to communicate with dealers, making buying decisions, evaluating value, and in some cases, even negotiating five-figure collectibles with a level of confidence that honestly impressed me. There was something really special about seeing that, because collecting has always been about more than just cardboard. At its best, it teaches patience, it teaches communication, it teaches entrepreneurship, it teaches delayed gratification, budgeting, negotiation, basic economics, and even the art of making a deal. Those are all lessons that can stay with someone for the rest of their life. But at the same time, today's hobby isn't the same hobby many of us grew up with. Modern collecting is much faster. It's more accessible, it's more connected through social media. There are live breaks 24 hours a day, constant product releases, influencer culture, mystery products, FOMO, instant purchasing, endless notifications. The hobby has become incredibly exciting, but it's also become incredibly stimulating. As collecting continues to grow, so does our responsibility to help young collectors navigate these environments in healthy, intentional ways. That's exactly why I'm excited for today's conversation. Joining me today is Ryan and his wife, Desiree, better known throughout the hobby as Like Father, Like Son. Ryan has built an incredible community centered around family, positivity, and sharing the collecting experience with children. Through his content, live streams, and interactions with collectors across the country, he's become someone who's consistently reminded people that the hobby isn't just about what you collect, it's about who you share it with. One thing I've really appreciated about Ryan is that he understands something we've talked about a lot at Collectors MD. Protecting the future of the hobby doesn't mean taking away what makes it exciting. It means making sure the next generation grows up enjoying collecting in ways that are healthy, meaningful, and sustainable. Today, we're talking about raising young collectors, teaching life lessons through the hobby, the responsibility that parents have in today's collecting environments, what I observed at Fanatics Fest, what Ryan and Desiree observed at the West Coast Card Show, and why initiatives like Rip Responsibly aren't about limiting collecting. They're about helping protect it for generations to come. Ryan and Desiree, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks so much for having us, brother.
Thank you.
Real quick, before we start, the beginning intro was awesome. I have my All Touches right next to me. Shout out All Touch, our sponsor as well. So shout out to George.
George is the man, and I'm looking forward to finally meeting him in person next week at the National. We should all get together and hang. That's the beauty of the hobby. So we're going to jump right in. Our first segment is all about raising the next generation. So for people who may not know you yet, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and how collecting became something you all enjoy together?
So obviously Ryan, 43, my wife, Desiree, a couple years behind me. We've been together.
I'm like 30.
We've been inseparable for 15 years, literally inseparable. So, when this opportunity came to be that we could be partners in, It sounds so funny, but it is a business, even though we try not to treat it as one. It just organically became so amazing. I started collecting as a young boy. My grandfather raised me, and he was a coin collector. So he always taught me, everything about collecting. And I started with G.I. Joes. I was, G.I. Joes, Ninja Turtles. And then it got into the sports cards, probably around I can't remember exactly. I'd say 8 to 10 when sports really started to become something big for me. I was a construction worker. I was running a very large construction company. We had 178 employees, and we were running $100 million a year in construction on top of the world. And things went sideways with the company, and the company shut down. So, it was basically
time to rebuild.
One of the lowest points of my life. We had 2 children at the time, and
one on the way. And, I was back to, I hit rock bottom, essentially. And Beckham at the time, my oldest son, who's now 10, he was 6, said, "Dad, let's do the sports cards together." And I was like, "Buddy, Mommy has a Maserati in the driveway. I don't know how I'm paying for it next week. I can't do that. I have to go find something in, my career." And he just was persistent with it. He was like, "Come on, Dad, we can call it like father, like son." He came up with the image through some sort of little website. And he won. And I was just like, "All right, bud, I'll do it for you and your buddies." So we did one break on Facebook, blank wall. I don't know if I had cards stand, anything. It was so bad, bro. It was so bad. It was bad.
It was one blaster of Phoenix just for him and his buddies. We, it wasn't a charge break or anything like that. And it was such a hit. And everybody was like, "Yo, can you do that tomorrow?"
Day by day. And
I was like, "All right, I guess I'll come on tomorrow night." And then the breaks just started growing to, now a hobby box and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
And it just kind of, it blew up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it developed a life of its own, really. Yeah.
So much so that after, a few months, I turned to Des and I said, "Would you mind if I just stopped going to these really awful jobs that I was working and just gave this a shot for a little bit, not knowing that it was even going to blossom into what it was." I was just having so much fun with it.
Because at that time, you don't know the depth. We didn't know the depths of the hobby. You know what I mean? We were just "Oh, it's opening cards," and I'm like, "What?" You can't, when you think about it like that, as opposed to here we are sitting now, what we know.
We didn't realize that there was going to be such a community aspect to it. And because it was a father and a son who was, a 6-year-old boy, people love to see those actions. We were, I was, parenting him during these live streams.
Well, you were getting home from work. It was like this was our life. I'm making dinner. The kids are screaming, banging on the door. It was craziness. And I was like, "Are we really doing this? This is what's happening."
Yeah. And it just, the community really came and evolved into just a bunch of dads that related. And then I was a new dad, essentially. So, we would, "Hey, give me advice here, or this is what's going on."
The relationship started to form and
it became a place for us to just hang out and chat. And the cards were always cool, but to this day, I don't think it's ever been about the cards for like father, like son. As much as I'm a collector, I'm a card nut, I'm a hobbyist through and through. It's just the cards are
an added bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, I want to thank you both for sharing that, giving us a little peek behind the curtain into your personal lives and sharing about your family. I mean, that's what it's all about. I do want to just give our mutual friend here, Phil, a shout out.
Phil's here. Where's he coming up? Yeah. There's no comments in my chat over here.
It's over on the right if you look at comments.
It doesn't. Okay, that's a problem. Yeah. There it is. I see.
So Phil, for those listening on the audio platforms, just says, "Hi, Ryan, Desiree, and Alyx. Thanks for this family-oriented discussion And Ryan is repping Sealed Wax Nation, which is awesome. I just absolutely love to see that. But yeah, I mean, Ryan, one thing that really resonated with me while listening to your story was hearing that you got into collecting because of your grandfather's coin collection. Yeah. And that hits home for me personally because my story is incredibly similar. My grandfather actually collected watches, and spending time growing up with him and just marveling at his collection is really what sparked my own passion for collecting. I think, and it's just such a powerful reminder that for so many of us, collecting doesn't necessarily begin with the item itself. It begins with a relationship, right? It begins with memories, time spent together, and a connection between generations. Absolutely. And that's also what makes the hobby so beautiful. And when you involve your family, collecting becomes so much more than buying cards or coins or watches. It becomes a reason to spend time together and share stories and learn from one another and travel to shows and celebrate, the big pulls or make trades and really just create memories that last far longer than any collectible ever will, right? The hobby it becomes a place where, families can connect, friendships can grow, communities are built. And at its very best, collecting, doesn't really have to be about the cards. Like you just said, it's about the experiences they create and the people they bring into our lives.
So many times, like if I find somebody that's not in the hobby and they ask me, like, where do I start? What do I do? This, that, and all the other thing. I always tell them, especially I deal with like a lot of, men mostly, fathers. And I'll say to them, like, the one thing for me is I always heard growing up and in the construction world, was a lot of negativity, and you heard the dad say, well, enjoy it now because when they're 16 or 18, they're gone and you're not going to be as cool anymore as I am to my kids right now. And I always thought to myself, that's really lousy. And when you think about this, it's my little tool that when they're 30, they're 40, they're 50, they're going to be like, yo, Dad, I just got, this. And it's that timeless hobby that no matter how old I am, they are, hopefully their future children, that we will always have this. And Absolutely. To me, it's just an unbreakable bond, this hobby. And it's just something really special for me and my children.
Oh, 100%. So when your kids first started collecting, what excited you most about introducing them to the hobby specifically?
So they started with Pokemon, Beckham, and I have no idea about Pokemon. It's just not something that I was, educated with or even interested in at the time. And, when I showed them like, hey, look at Dad's football cards, like these guys, and he's a sports nut. So he started really, changing really quick, like a 180.
Yeah. Once he hit that age where he started playing sports, his mind kind of like flipped a little bit and he was just like, ooh.
One of my favorite things in those early days that I really miss, and it's a double-edged sword when you are a hobbyist and the business owner in the hobby, was those early days when you could pull an insert that we know is maybe worth $0.25 or, $1.
Yeah.
But he would go bananas, dude.
The excitement.
Like a base rookie was like, oh my, those days I miss tremendously. And I always tell new people, like, stop with the comps, stop with the dollar amount.
Like the innocence of it. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And that's,
I know too much now.
Now he's 10 and he was like, yo, this one, and he's telling me the stuff. And it's like, on one hand, it's amazing for, his maturation periods and, his business mind and things like that. But I miss those days where it was like we would go bananas over like $1
around the house like crazy.
Yeah. Friday, right after I left Fanatics Fest, I was headed downtown to meet my wife and some friends for dinner. And I got on the subway and I sat down and I couldn't help but notice there was a young boy next to me, couldn't be older than 10. And he's sitting there shuffling through Series 2 base cards, right? And his father was standing right there and he had his little brother next to him. And I was like, hey, man, what did you get? And he's like, oh, I actually found these. And I was like, oh, that's so funny. Like, I was actually just leaving cards in random spots throughout, the the convention center, hoping that, you know, kids would come across them and pick them up. And so they probably weren't the cards that I left. If they were, that would be crazy. But he's going through them and he's like, check this out. And he's like, we hit our favorite, we got our favorite player, Aaron Judge. And he flips the card over and it's a base insert. It's just a base insert, probably not worth more than $1. And he couldn't be more excited. And I was like, this is what it's all about. I mean, I said that to myself, and you know, then he's going through them, and there's a James Wood, and I'm like, oh, that's a good one. Like James Wood is one of the best hitters in baseball this year. And his brother's like, oh, can I have that one? Can I have that one? He's like, no, they're mine. And I'm like, oh, come on, just share with your brother. And the dad's, you know, standing there smiling, and he finally gave it to him. And, you know, what I loved most is that his brother went to go grab it out of his hand, and who knows if he like dinged the corner or like messed it up. But to them, it wasn't about like the condition or like keeping it, you know, mint. It was like about the experience of just going through the cards, seeing which players they found, you know, what they looked like, the eye appeal. And like, it wasn't about the value. It wasn't about the profit or the ROI or how much they could turn around and sell them for. And that's really where the hobby has
the pure joy that it brings people. And
right. And in so many ways, the hobby has evolved in that direction where, you know, on the other side of the spectrum, I'm going from booth to booth, talking to, you know, breakers, hobby shops, industry leaders, platforms, manufacturers. And, you know, in my peripheral, I could see kids transacting, and couldn't tell you how many times a kid walked up to a booth and was like, how much will you give me for this? Or like, you know, how much is this worth? Or, you know, I'm doing the trade up challenge. Like, what can I get for this? Right. And it's just turned into, you know, a glorified stock market. And kids are being conditioned at such a young age to really only be involved for one reason, and that's to transact, to make money, to make a profit. And so when you can really strip away all of the bells and whistles that have been embedded into the hobby, and, you know, I always preface that it's okay that investing is involved. And I think it's healthy to an extent to teach kids at a young age basic economics, how to transact, the art of a deal, etc. But when it's only about that, or when that becomes the sole priority, that's where things start to, you know, become a little bit slippery, right? And so
where we had to tell the kids to dial it back,
right?
You know, get back to the basics of why you love the hobby and not arguing over the money aspect of it. So, yeah.
We never let our children really know card values for quite some time.
It was a while. Yeah, it was a while.
They would ask me questions, and it was part of like father, like son, where we wouldn't discuss what the value of a card was. You know, when you hit a card in a break, first thing everybody's like, what do you think that's worth? What do you think this is? And in the beginning of the time, because Beckham was, you know, 6 and 7, I would immediately shoot it down, where if you made that comment, I would be like, Alyx, let's talk about that, you know, in my DMs after the break. I really don't want to get into that aspect with Beckham here right now.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to make it about dollars and cents. It was just about, you know, having fun and the joy.
Experience. 100%.
So we finally let him, the beginning of, what was it, last summer, he was turning 10. We finally said, okay, you can go to the shows and do your own deals and do that. And we gave him $1,000 goal to make $1,000 on his own by the end of the summer. And he made $1,000 within like 3 weeks. He made $4,000 that last summer. So it was just like, for all the parts about it that I don't like, that I wish he still was callow to the financial aspect of the hobby, there is so many positives where it's like these kids are so sharp, and the way they act, and they're like little businessmen, that is just, it blows my mind. And he's on
it really is impressive.
Well, where we ever were at that age, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. And that's what I mean. Like, it can be healthy. It can teach them lessons that they can apply later in life, or to other activities, or, you know, industries. So to an extent, like, I think it's smart to introduce your kid and explain to them the value behind it from a monetary standpoint and why this is worth this much and why you need to keep this in good condition. Those are all great, attributes to teach. But again, it's a matter of just making sure that there's a sense of balance, right? And so as part of the work we're doing, like, we want to make sure that we're educating the parents, because like, you guys get it, you guys are fully immersed in it, but there's so many parents that have no idea the size, the scale, the reach that this hobby has become, right? I mean, you saw it on full display at Fanatics Fest, and I'm sure the West Coast Card Show too, and we're going to see it next week in Chicago at the National. But it is just multiplied in size and interest. And when you have the star power, right? Like Michael Rubin's been successfully able to bring on all of these athletes. I mean, I was 10 feet away from Tom Brady like 48 hours ago. Like, that's surreal. And it's really cool that they're all getting involved. But at the same time, like, the kids are going to gravitate towards where their favorite players are. And
time out real quick. I have a bone to pick with Brady. And if he watches this, maybe he'll hear this. Last year, I was in the Fanatics games, and he gave all the average Joes $5,000. Well, Bieber gave everybody $10K this year. So Brady, you owe us all $5K.
Did he give $10K to each person, or was it $10K divided up amongst every?
No. So the grand prize is $1 million.
Yeah.
So Brady took so 5,000 times 50 average Joes is $250,000.
Oh.
And then, so Bieber, I guess, gave half of the winnings, which obviously ups it to $10K for all the contestants. So Brady needs to live up to that GOAT status and send us all 5G.
I agree.
Like that.
I agree. Yeah, when I saw, maybe I just misread it, or I was reading too fast, but I read it as, Bieber's donating $10,000 from his $1 million winnings to the collectors.
Each average Joe.
That's amazing. Good for him. I mean, that's what I mean, though. It was so cool that like Bieber just randomly showed up. I mean, it wasn't planned or announced, and he competed. And I mean, like, I was walking through the show and, trying to make my way. I kept comparing walking through the Javits Center over the weekend to like being a part of like a school of fish, where you're just kind of just going with the current. And if you stop, you're just going to get like trampled. And I was going with the flow, and then suddenly a security guard stops me and the other people that were near me, and pulls out a gate or whatever. And was it Dirty Dom, Dom Mysterio, and Liv Morgan like rush right past me with like security guards and their whole entourage. I'm like, this is crazy. Everywhere you look. I mean, I turned my head right, and like Logan Paul was like shooting soccer balls into the net. Like it was surreal.
It's a very surreal experience.
It was really, really cool. But at the same time, again, like it's like, it's a circus, and it's not just in person. Like, it exists across social media, online platforms. I mean, you can really immerse yourself into this space from the comfort of your own couch. And so that's why in today's culture, today's hobby, it's so important to just make sure that you're, for adults too, right? Adults really primarily, because it's become such an adult oriented hobby. But it's just so important to keep your, guard up and make sure that you're staying within your means, and that, if you're a parent, you're educating your kids and making sure that they're not getting involved in dangerous, parts of the hobby, because there can be, unfortunately, a lot of nasty things that go on behind the scenes, the predators and just the people that, want to take advantage of the uneducated and the highly impressionable. I mean, that's really what we're striving towards, is just creating a healthier, more sustainable hobby.
I feel like with the craziness of the hobby, that stuff falls through the cracks, because everyone's like glorifying it and and that's where that stuff happens. And you're like, how could we let this happen? You know what I mean? Because the focus shifts to like the shiny, bright thing. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
Yeah.
So what are some lessons that have, stood out most, within your own family that you've been able to, teach your kids over the last couple of years?
The first part was when we first started. One of the things that just sticks out to my mind is my boys wanted to keep everything. So we would be pulling cards for other people, obviously, in these breaks, and they would be like, well, I want that, and I want that. And it was a really quick learning lesson for them to understand that, like, this isn't yours, and you have to take care of it and make sure it gets to the people and everything like that. So,
and you also have to be happy for other people. You have to learn how to have that, that's a quality that like young kids don't really understand.
Right.
Being happy for someone, and
that's an amazing point, because one of the parts about like father, like son that I'm really proud about is we don't allow the negative into our community, since it is a private Facebook breaking community. You know the types that like they skunk and everybody, that stinks.
Right.
Then they make it known to everybody else in the room, and it brings down the
morale,
the energy,
yeah.
the morale. The people that can't be excited for somebody. If I get the Eagles in a break and they don't get anything, but you do, yo, Alyx, that's so awesome. Congrats, man.
It's a big
That's
thing.
what our community is. And was something that our sons now, they go to school. This is wild, bro, as a parent. They go to school and they'll be like, oh, Johnny, you just got a new pair of Jordans. They're really cool. Oh, I love that new hat, or whatever it may be. They're very complimentary, very positive.
That's awesome.
None of the kids where we were at in Jersey would ever say anything to them. They would never compliment them on their wins, their championships, their athletic successes. And I found that to be like so weird. But now that we're down in Florida, it's different. These kids down here,
culture.
it is. It's more like that. So
that's great to hear.
Yeah.
Because I mean, even when I was a kid, like there's a sense of jealousy and envy, and like kids especially like always want what they can't have, right? Yeah. And they always want the next thing, and it becomes naturally hard to be happy for somebody else's success, especially if you just failed, right? And when it comes to the hobby, this is where it sort of ties back to the gambling element of it. It's like, you're sitting at a roulette table and you're on a crazy losing streak, and then you get up to walk away, and then your number hits, the moment you stop placing your bets and somebody else hits the jackpot, and you're like, you got to be kidding me, right? So yeah, it is refreshing to see when, somebody hits the team that you were chasing after in a break and they end up hitting, and, you see a person say something like, congratulations, like, I'm really happy for you. Like, that's rare, right? Especially in today's culture and the way people interact in these chats, where everything is just like so competitive and there's so much hostility and negativity. And so I love that you're kind of weeding that out and making sure that it's not acceptable within your environment. That's something I'd love to see more of. Whereas like there's some of these breakers have just gotten so big that they have a hard time monitoring the chat or the comments. And so those nasty comments end up just, kind of falling through the cracks. And so it's not necessarily the breaker's fault, but at the same time, it's like, how do we weed out that negativity? How do we weed out the constant trolling and the jealousy and the anger and the resentment, right?
It's also hard to tell somebody that's spending money with you, hey, I appreciate you, like, because we'll do that in the DMs, like, Alyx, really love you, bro, and thank you so much for your support, but I can't have you hooting and hollering the way you were or cursing. We don't allow any type of language in our kid-friendly breaks for obvious reasons. And, it's a hard thing to do. It's, it is a business, but I can't tell you how many people I've actually removed from our community because they just didn't fit in. And for me, it's that, angel on your shoulder, devil on your shoulder, because I am supporting a family of 6. So to tell somebody that does, contribute, hey, this isn't for you. It's tough. It's tough to do. And it's definitely something that I attribute to maybe our growth not being up there with some of the bigs. But we also don't run 50 case breaks that are just absolutely ridiculous. I won't hoot and holler to, if a case is $10,000, we're not trying to sell it for $30,000 like it is on release days and whatnot. we just do things a little bit different.
I think a lot of it comes back to like core values and like
Yeah.
knowing what your core values are and implementing them in all situations. And we've found, I think, through the hobby, different, you know, you think, oh, it's just cards, it's just this, but then when you like bring it back, you're teaching your kids how to be humans through this hobby. So it's like, you definitely have to have a really good handle on things. You know, you can't let things get away from you.
I love it.
What? You love that?
I love it.
Really well said, Desiree. I think a part of the problem is like people lose sight of their values and their, you know, morals when the bottom line becomes the sole focus. And so when you're prioritizing community and positivity over, you know, however much money you're going to profit on a given night or a given week or a given month, like that's when I think you really start to build something that has the potential, the opportunity to last for a long time, right? Because if you're just after the bottom line and looking out for like the quickest way to profit off of the latest product, you're you know, in a lot of ways sacrificing or jeopardizing the integrity of the experience. And when you do that, you run into issues where there's just a higher churn. There's so much more volatility where people are just going to come in, get skunked, and never engage with you again, right? But if you enforce, if you cultivate a positive environment and culture, you start to see people coming back, and they'll be more likely to re-engage with you, and maybe not always spend, but at least be there to support the show.
One thing we always say, like, I hate when people say like, oh, I don't have money this week to get in the break. And I'm like, what? Just still be in the
Just
chat.
come hang.
Like, just come hang. You don't have to be.
Yeah.
And so many people are like, seriously? Like, I'm like, yeah, dude, I love when you're the conversation during a break, especially if I'm solo. That's what,
That's the energy that feeds, that's what feeds I think us, you know, as being, you know, the breaker or whatever. I think that we love that interaction. That is what fuels us. I think the best shows that we have is when that interaction is at its like peak. Do you know what I mean?
100%.
The one thing we discussed before too, that I like, for me, my core value with your core value of Rip Responsibly is with us being a private group on Facebook. It blows my mind that any breaker out there would run a tab. I think, you know, not to be too harsh, I think, one, you're a stone cold idiot for doing that. And two, you're enabling, obviously, the addiction side of the hobby. And I'm totally against it. We do not run tabs. When you don't run tabs, you have the ability to now see people's spending habits.
Right.
It's, yo, can I get you Thursday? Can I get you Friday? Turns into, you know, listen, there's so many members of the room. There's some very, very wealthy members of the room that, you know, they'll square on Friday. That, you know, that's a different thing. But like, you can see those patterns, and it just blows my mind that people will put other people in such a bad spot over cards. Yeah. You know, it's ridiculous.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because that's how, one of the reasons how I got myself into a lot of financial trouble during, you know, my days of heavy addiction. I would build these tabs, and, you know, to your point, like, I was one of the big spenders. And so I built a rapport, I built a relationship with certain breakers, certain shops, and they would extend tabs to me. And it got to a point where it just spiraled out of control, and I wasn't able to pay everyone back. And, you know, I had to kick the can, and it just became very uncomfortable, and I burnt bridges along the way. This is something I'm very, very transparent and open about, because ultimately what I'm trying to do is ensure that our movement, our message ensures that people don't make the same mistakes I did, right? And so I couldn't agree with you more there. I think the whole concept of a tab is like, so I mean, there's just too many parallels to like gambling, where with a bookie, right? Like you're asking for a credit, and you know, you gotta pay your bookie on Monday or whenever it is. And so I really respect and appreciate that. And I think it's the right way to operate, especially in today's, environment. I mean, Facebook is a different animal than Whatnot or Fanatics, where you can't run tabs.
Yeah.
And I appreciate and respect the fact that you guys are on one of the social platforms where there's a lot of manual effort there, in terms of like collecting payments and like
old school. But listen, that's why
very old school. Like,
it's like the way we do things is a little bit more
archaic.
And maybe we would be further along in our career or our business journey if we did things differently, but we're not willing to sacrifice along the way. And maybe we suffer, so to speak, in some ways because of it, but I'd rather take that and like be able to put my head down at night and know that we're like doing the right thing longevity wise than just like quick, let's get in, get out. You know what I mean? Like that's not cool.
100%. So as parents, it can obviously be sometimes difficult knowing when to encourage the excitement and when to create boundaries like we've been talking about. So I'm curious, how have you both approached finding that balance for your kids?
Well, we use the hobby definitely as a reward system, 1000%. Kids, like you said, they always want what they can't have. So, our children, I'm sure everybody's children are the same way. I want, they want like
never ending want,
so
insatiable,
Yeah. So we definitely use the hobby as a reward system for our children. The boundaries, Alex, I hate to be, it's just me being honest. Our kids are so stinking good, bro. Our kids are really, really good kids. So, once we say something, and I think it's just they emulate how we act, that we haven't really had to set too many boundaries with the hobbies because I think they hear me preach it every day in my live streams. They sit next to me in most of them. So I don't know. Is there anything you can think about?
I mean, there was, I don't know if this is like the same situation, but like when they would go off and like do the deals and like get burnt and things like that, where they would like, get like carried away and think that they like, like I'm going to go and do this and come back to dad. And dad's like, what did you just, you know what I mean? Like getting maybe a little too big for their britches, so to speak, I guess you could say. I don't know if that applies to what we're talking about, but that to me stands out as something that has happened.
So Desiree is like meaning that, when they're both making their own money in the hobby, Beckham and Bronx, my middle guy, and they'll make, $500 and come back with like 5 blasters. And I'm like, guys, that wasn't smart to do that. You know what I mean? Maybe 1 blaster, save the rest of your money. So those sort of boundaries.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, you guys also seem like really cool parents. And so there's a certain level of respect, and I'm not a parent yet, so I can't speak to this, but I think, from a child standpoint, there's a certain level of respect, and it sounds like your kids really look up to both of you. And when you have that dynamic as a parent, it creates a sense of, trust and respect. And, they want to emulate and embody the same mindset and characteristics. So, I mean, you guys are clearly doing it the right way. And
the one thing most of us have done the right way. I think it's the only thing.
Yeah, seriously.
So looking back now, has becoming parents changed the way you both collect personally?
Collecting the hobby?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any more money.
And I can't tell you how long. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean,
you used to have a lot of money.
It shifts your priorities.
It definitely does. Yeah. For me as a collector, it's like I would take every single dollar I had and buy every card out there. You know what I mean? I love this stuff. I do.
Yeah.
I think they are so stinking cool cards, and
they are. There's no denying that.
They really are. And that's like one of my beefs with, breakers that aren't collectors. It's like, you're kind of selling like a false advertisement. Like I am just so stinking into this. But I have a family of 6. So it's like, You
need
know,
to be realistic about
we
it.
take a little bit and, you know, we get into breaks ourselves and, you know, but you have to be, you know, strategic financially and you have to set boundaries. So it, you know, it also shows the kids, you know, priorities like.
And setting goals for themselves. Like, okay, this is what you want. This is, you know, you say this is what, like Beckham for a while was like, you know, I want to be, you know, social media, like, what's it, Eli? Is it
Eli.
Like,
shout out
like,
Eli.
Yeah, he kept like saying like, I want to do this and I want to do that. I'm like, well, you need to put in the work. Like, you see us put in the work and you see what happens when we do, and this is what we have. So you can't just say, oh, I want to be like this kid on social media. You have to take the steps, and we need to see what those steps are that you're taking.
Right.
To reach that goal. You know what I mean? Like,
totally.
It's not just like, here, we're just going to put the platform in front of you. No, you have to work for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I also love to see the husband-wife dynamic that you guys have within the hobby, because that's not necessarily common. You know, we reach a lot of collectors that come to us.
The hobby's favorite family.
With a lot of relational issues that stemmed from the hobby, right? Hiding packages, hiding finances, receipts, you know, that sort of thing. And it sounds like you guys are on the same page and you love to collect together. And again, I think that's really rare and something I certainly am a little bit envious of. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to see.
So even like to talk about this, Nick Andrews and I have this conversation a lot, Boston Card Hunter.
Yeah,
of course. How did you get your wife involved? Like, I want my wife to.
I think Nick just announced that he's getting his wife involved.
He did. So this is why I thought about it. Desiree, for the record, is not a sports fan.
It's not.
She has.
I grew up in a sports household. My dad is a sports freak, and he is a collector of so many different things. He's like a hoarder collector, but he is a collector, so to speak. And so this was never new to me. Sports was never new to me, but
it wasn't
I'm
one of
not
her
a
passions.
passionate.
Sure.
You know, I'm not the girl that you want to bring to the game and go, you know, I'm not, that's not me. Like,
you are wearing an Eagle shirt.
I'm taking selfies, like getting the light of the stadium. You know what I mean? So it was an issue in the beginning. Where do I fit into this?
Because I wanted to be a family-owned business. And, you know, she was just like, Rye, I'm happy for you. I love that the kids are so happy. But, like, where do I fit in, essentially? And, you know,
it took a little while. It took a while.
Then I told you in the beginning, I'm awful with tech, bro. And, you know, when we started to realize that we were getting a voice, we were like, all right, well, I think we need to have a social media presence. And then Desiree stepped in and started our Instagram. And then the content side of it and the social media aspect, she does everything. Literally everything.
I'll be honest. I think the part that like clicked for me was when we decided that last year's Fanatics Fest was going to be our kick in the door moment. And I said, I think we should throw a launch party. And I think we should let everybody know who we are and come in and like, just be like, hey. And when he said, I'm going to give you the reins to throw that party and plan that party, to me, because that's what I like to do, it like lit a spark in me for some reason. And that just was like, I hit the ground running. And that's when the social media started popping off. And I just fell into my own groove. Somehow, some way, I just did. And I really do think last year's Fanatics Fest was the spark of it. So really just, was it last year?
So we went into Fanatics Fest last year with only about like 8,000. It was like maybe like right about 9.
You guys have 44.6 thousand followers on Instagram. I mean, that's really, really impressive.
1 year.
That's awesome. Yeah, the organic growth. I mean, I also think that when you see a family that is authentic and sharing a passion, right? Like we talked about earlier, it's not just about the cards, it's about the engagement, the experience, the camaraderie. It's refreshing. And I think people are really, really receptive to that. I think your perspective and the way you guys approach the hobby is so important, right? Because collecting can be an incredible teacher when it's approached intentionally. It's one of the few hobbies that naturally combines history, sports, business, communication, patience, financial decision making, and relationships all into one experience. But like anything else, kids learn by watching us, right? And if they see us collecting with balance, with gratitude, with intention, they're far more likely to develop those same habits themselves. So yeah, the future of this hobby isn't just about producing great products or nice looking cards. It's about raising great collectors, and you guys are clearly doing it the right way. So with that, we're going to transition over to our next segment, which is protecting young collectors in a changing hobby. So over the last several years, the hobby has changed dramatically. From your perspective, what's been the biggest change you've noticed?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm really ashamed to say that just recently my eyes were opened, and I feel very naive because when I walk into a show,
I wonder what you're going to say.
No, when I walk into a show, I had a false sense of security. So I let my children run free. Go ahead, guys. I always keep them with me. Just recently, with all the, the attention on the pedophiles and the sex offenders that are attending these shows, setting up as vendors, that blew my mind. And I really was ashamed of myself as a father.
Like how naive.
Like how stupid am I to just be that trustworthy in a room? But it was because it was a hobby. It was something that I'm so passionate about.
And you don't want to have that negative, like connotate, like hanging, like be that negative person, like, oh, you want to go into it with an open mind and an open heart. But in reality, not everybody else is doing the same. And it was a big reality check for us. Like a really, really big reality check for us.
Somebody controversial in the hobby, TCL, he knows he's controversial. He's a friend of mine. I don't agree with a lot of his tact. We talk about it freely. He knows. But there's a really big mutual respect because I think his message is always right. It's just sometimes how he says it.
Right.
He was the one to put out, that first case. And I was just like, so
I know he got really, really passionate about that. And
as he should, man, he's a father.
Yeah. I mean, one thing I think is incredibly important is recognizing that with any platform, any voice, any reach comes a sense of responsibility. There's a duty, right? And the overwhelming amount of people in this hobby are good people, but like any community that involves children, there are unfortunately individuals with harmful intentions who simply have no place here. And that's why I think, influencers, creators, breakers, Jeff Wilson, right? Anyone with a voice has an opportunity to do more than just entertain or showcase products. They can help educate families. They can encourage parents to, stay involved and keep an eye out. They can promote safer interactions. They can speak up when something isn't right. Awareness isn't about creating fear. It's about creating a safer environment for everybody involved, especially the kids. So when Chuck did,
I found it very odd. I feel like when this whole subject came to light, it like ruffled people's feathers because I think people felt like stupid. Do you know what I mean? Like all this time we've been long, and they were kind of like, we need to check ourselves. And like when you have to check yourself, sometimes you're like, you know what I mean? Like people.
I had to check myself.
Honestly, it's also like it's nobody's fault. Like we're talking about wolves in sheep's clothing. Like you walk into a card show and you see these people. Like we're as good people. Our natural way to approach things is to give people the benefit of the doubt, right? And so when you go into a card show and you're talking to somebody or a vendor and they're polite and respectful and being nice to your kids, like it's the last thing you're going to think of. But when something like this happens, it's unfortunate, but it also it's a little bit of a wake-up call. Like we can't be so accepting of everyone. We have to, and it's not, for ourselves, it's to protect the kids. We have to put our guard up and make sure that we are approaching every single situation, transaction, conversation, especially when kids are involved, with just a little bit of caution, a little bit of, looking out,
I agree wholeheartedly. That was definitely something that was a major wake up call for me.
Yeah.
You have to communicate with the kids. It's a lot of conversations that obviously we probably don't really want to have, but like walking into, Oaks, the Philly show is like, you have to mentally prepare them. It's like stranger danger chats, but like,
especially if you lure the kids with cards.
That's what I'm saying. They're going to be so taken off guard because of the setting that you have them in. So it's like, we're driving to these card shows and I'm like, I really don't want to be this like nagging mom person, but like, I have to get this off my chest. And like,
yeah, it's interesting because the hobby, it's like, it's a breeding ground. It's like the perfect environment for a predator to, seek his prey. And that's a scary thing to say. And I feel dirty even saying that, but like, it's one of the only industries where like adults and children can both, have a presence and for it to be acceptable. You know what I mean?
Wholeheartedly, bro.
Yeah, I agree.
It's, it's an uncomfortable conversation.
It is.
And
but that's part of being a parent. And,
that's why I had all the respect. You and I talked about it. I had all the respect in the world that a voice as massive as Jeff Wilson's in the hobby came out and said something like that. To me was like, when you have a voice and you have a platform, there's the trolls, there's the people that just don't like you because you're doing something that they're not. And Jeff gets a lot of adversity in the hobby. And it was just like, for a guy like that to come out and do something like that, I was just like, wow, dude, that's like
you did the right thing, 100%. I spent some time with Jeff over the weekend, and he has been one of our biggest supporters, and he made a really, really generous contribution to our foundation, our nonprofit, which we launched a month or two ago. And he, I walked over to him for the second time. I want to say it was on Saturday. And, I just wanted to say hi and let him know how some meetings went. And I saw him standing there. And it was like almost like a snapshot of like of vulnerability, right? He was standing there with his wife and his youngest son. I know he has 3 kids, the younger boy, and his son was just embracing him. He was hugging his dad, right? Like, and in that moment, I was like, Jeff Wilson, as big as he's become and how powerful his voice is in the hobby, and how many haters and naysayers throw stones, like this guy at the end of the day is just a dad. He's just he's a father, he's a husband, he's a person. And I walked over and we started chatting, and the part that kind of gave me goosebumps is that it's his kid didn't shy away and say, oh, dad's having a business conversation now. He clung on to him and he was hugging him the whole time. And I had to acknowledge him. I was like, hey buddy, how you doing? It was beautiful to see. And like those types of people that at the end of the day, like, yeah, of course it's a business and they're looking out for ways to grow their business, and they're going to do or say things that might be polarizing. But at the end of the day, they're people, they're parents, they're, spouses, they have good intent. And so when Jeff did that, I think it really moved a lot of people. It gave us an opportunity collectively to come together for a shared cause, right? And so I think there's an opportunity here to bring people from both sides of the spectrum, right? This cardboard life, Jeff Wilson, and everybody in between, to rally behind this. Like, this is all about just positive awareness, education, support, accountability, looking out for each other, and protecting the kids, right? And so I'd like to talk to you offline about ways we can, potentially.
I always am open to that, dude. It's like you said, there's people that hate breakers. I'm a breaker. Like, you know what I mean? People hate but it's like the one thing, it's like, if you can find that common ground with me, is like, just realize that regardless of how we earn our living, like, I'm really, really big on making sure that, the children in this are, thought about, protected, especially because, like you said, just like Jeff Wilson, dude, I'm just a dad, bro. I'm a dad that opens cards and likes the hobby and travels the world doing this with his family. So it's like, that's really it.
Yeah. So I want to keep us on track here. We're almost at an hour, but this is such a good conversation, and I want to be respectful of your time. Do you guys have a hard stop or anything?
No, we're
Okay.
I might have to jump out to make some phone calls, but
Ryan, I think Ryan can hold down the fort.
Tonight at 6 o'clock, so we got 4 more hours.
like he's been on for 3 days, so you're not keeping him all day.
Yeah, I'll try to keep us on track here. So we've talked about a lot of this. I just want to make sure I'm touching on a lot of the questions that I prepared. So today's kids aren't just collecting cards anymore, right? We've talked about this. They're growing up with live breaks, the social media, the mystery products, the influencers, the instant purchasing, literally at their fingertips. And that's one thing that we're trying to help refine is the age gates, the certain environments that kids can or should or shouldn't be involved with, right? And we're not saying that like collecting or hobby platforms should be off limits for kids. It's just a matter of like the hierarchy, right? So how do you think that's changed the experience compared to when like we were younger?
So like you said, we're not trying to gatekeep certain platforms. I am. My children aren't allowed on Whatnot. My children are not allowed on Fanatics. Not for any other reason that they shouldn't be. One, I don't like the way that a lot of breakers present themselves, the way they act and the way they talk, knowing damn well that there are children watching. Some of the conversations that are had to me are just like, you have no class whatsoever.
It's very
poor taste. And also, I don't want them just to see that constant 24/7, 365, because it's so fantasy world. And, so for us, we don't allow our children on there. If we get into a break, then yes, he'll sit by my side. We'll watch that one specific.
I think we try to bring them into it, integrate them into it, like in person. You know what I mean? Bring them to the shows, bring them to the card shops. Like, I don't like to feed into things on the device.
We don't like our kids online.
We don't like unless they're comping cards or doing some sort of like research. Beckham likes to cut videos, things like that. I don't want my kids just like scrolling aimlessly. Like, that's not gonna do any good for them.
Right. As big as it's like social media is our life. I
don't want them, because we didn't have it, and we say all the time, can you imagine if what the world is now was like when we were younger? We would not be sitting here right now.
I'd be in jail.
So why would I let my children just run wild?
Right.
With this access to something so great, but also so dangerous.
Right.
The children.
Yes. You gotta look at them.
Right. And that's what we're talking about with these platforms directly, are implementing things like age gates, guardrails, self-limitation capabilities where you can set a budget, or, if your kid has a device, you can make sure that he or she is only spending so much time on these apps or so much money. These are the things that everything is just sort of the Wild West right now, where like there are no limitations because a lot of these platforms are disguising the activity as a childhood hobby. And so when regulators, legislators, governments come in and look at it or assess it from like a bird's eye view, all they're seeing are sports cards and Pokemon cards, and they're like, oh, it's a kid's toy, it's a kid's hobby. Like how dangerous could it possibly be? Right. And so the platforms are kind of taking advantage of that to an extent. And so they're creating experiences that they know are going to keep people hooked. They're going to keep people engaged longer. They're going to keep people spending. The near miss effect, right? The flashing lights, the wheel spins, the randomization of everything, the gamble within a gamble, where like, you first got to get the right team, and then the right player has to come out of the box, and then the card itself has to be in good condition. Then it has to get a good grade. Then you have to pray that, their market doesn't go down while you're waiting for the card to get graded. That's what I like to call gambling inception, where it's just like a dopamine hit after a dopamine hit, that variable reward, the anticipation loop, it's never ending, and people get really hooked on that, especially children. So again, it's just a matter of making sure that like
you know what I mean? I love this stuff. So
I also think the way we do it with the kids is we have the kids, like when they come with us to shows, we have them give back to the other kids. Like, we like to incorporate them in our stuff that we do for the younger kids at the shows. You guys go out and talk to these kids. You give them these packs of cards. You feel what it's like to give to other children. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not just take. It's really, I like to see them giving happiness to other kids in the hobby. That's important.
Yeah.
Very important.
So as parents, how do you introduce your kids to all of the excitement without allowing the hobby to become centered around this constant consumption?
I think by doing those things, having them do the charity work and the interviews and the, you know, the legwork that they need to do. It's not all glitz and glamour. There is a lot that goes into this, and working the business, I think, for them shows them that side of it.
So last year, there's no lie about it whatsoever that we put our head down and we were like, grow. Selfishly, that was our main concern, because if you obviously have a business and we want this to be something that, you know, we pass down to our children, and, you know, you need growth for business, unfortunately. So it's like, there's only, you know, you can do it organically, but you really have to go essentially balls to the wall to do it. So last year it was just like father, like son, like father, like son, like father, like son. And I was, we spent about $100,000 last year on travel alone. We were in a different state every weekend, traveling with the whole family almost. And, you know, we had really no sponsorships. So it was all on us. And it was a risk that we took to just kind of gamble on ourselves, because we knew we believed in ourselves, and we believed in our vision, and we believed on who we were.
Right.
So with that said, that was last year. And that's all we talked about with the kids is like, we got to get here. We do this, you know, this. And it was too much. And it was, you know, was it necessary? I think so. Do I still recognize as a father, maybe it was too much? Yes. So this year, going into this summer, that's when we said, this is going to be the summer of the give back. We reached some of the successes that we hoped for. You know, obviously we're still, you know, trying to attain so many other levels, but we started a summer charity this summer, and, you know, we raised almost $10,000.
Amazing.
The members of Like Father, Like Son, and a lot of other, you know, influential people in the hobby donated. And, you know, we told the kids, like, this summer's not about Like Father, Like Son. This summer's about giving back to the community and how we can help others now having this platform. So one of the things I'm really proud about is we were just in North Carolina with a show promoter, Sports Wax Promotions. The gentleman's name's James, who runs a phenomenal show down there in the Carolinas. And he brought in 11 underprivileged boys in a youth basketball program, who these boys all have older brothers that are gang members. And they were already starting to dabble in maybe running for their brothers or getting involved in some of the things. So we brought them out to this show, and we taught them how that you can flip and hustle in a card show, and it's all legal and fun. And I'm telling you, 2 of these kids started crying at the end of it and started hugging me, and the coaches and some of the father figures were there. They're like, dude, I think you may have changed 1 or 2 of these kids' like lives just from showing them something else in the world.
Sure.
And it was something special. It was something special. And my kids got to see it, you know, because they are blessed. They have, you know, a father and mother in their life that's always present, since I work a lot from home. And, you know, they got to see the other side of, you know, some children really, you know, have a rough situation in life, and, you know, what we can do now that we have a voice, and, you know, and you're able to, you know, get those donations. And that's what this summer changed, and this year, where we want to use our platform to let them interview kids and make other kids feel cool. Like, I'm on this cool Instagram page and things like that. So this year compared to last year has changed immensely for us.
Very different year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you see it though too, because the business side, the financials take little hits as well when you stop concentrating on one aspect of it, but it's just a constant.
balancing act
Yeah.
and struggle as small business owners.
It has to happen.
But
Yeah. You got to make sacrifices,
Yeah.
for the betterment of the long-term sustainability. And it just, again, it's so refreshing to hear how you guys approach your business, because it is unique. It's like, I want to say, when I got back into the hobby in 2020 during the pandemic, I was a part of a break group with 3 buddies that I grew up with. It was called BOGO Breaks, and we were ripping on Facebook, we were on Instagram, and we were just, we were doing divisionals for like a hobby box or like a retail box. There were $20 spots, and we were just having fun with it. And there were so many other breakers out there that were doing more of the same. This was before Whatnot, before Fanatics Live. And so, going back to what we were talking about earlier, where you guys are still, kind of in the archaic model, I have so much love and respect and appreciation and admiration for that. So again, like in an industry that is growing as rapidly as it is, it's so refreshing to see folks like yourselves that are still doing it, like the old school. It's cool though. It's really cool. So one thing we talk about at Collectors MD all the time is how collecting environments can unintentionally reward things like urgency, repetition, and the whole, chasing behavior and mentality. Do you think parents fully understand how different today's hobby is compared to what it was 20 years ago?
No clue.
Not at all.
You see a lot of parents kind of just let their kids, they kind of hang back and they just kind of walk with them, and they're not really engaged, or like, what are you looking at, bud? Or
Half of them are on their phone. They're like, yeah. You know what I mean? Like, they're not noticing a lot.
In LA, I'm telling you,
I can't even imagine what you
this
saw
was
in
a
LA.
1,000 table show.
So big.
So when I tell you I let my kids run free, these are like $150, 150 table shows that, like, I'm 6'3". I can probably look around and see, oh, there they are. The amount of parentless children that I saw at the show, and this is LA. So it's like, I was blown away. So no, I don't think parents have a clue what's going on.
So from your perspective, like what can we do better to make sure that the parents are aware of what's really going on out there?
I just say, like, I say this to Ryan all the time, and it sounds so cheesy, but like, I love I think if any kind of info or knowledge is so much power. I have been begging him to do like a tutorial video, like what parents don't know about breaking, what they need to know, what's not seen, what goes on at card shows, like just to give parents this info, because I really do feel like half of them are going into it so blindly. And as a lot of parents are, they just want their kids to be happy, and they just want their kids to get what they want and have fun. And, they're just about pleasing their children. But with that, I don't think they realize the damage that they're doing but they don't know. So I want Ryan to let them know. And I think just like little little topics that get covered every once in a blue moon, like, hey guys, let's talk about this. I think you're onto something, Desiree, and
I give you permission and full reign to tap into a new tool and resource that we just created recently, and basically it's called the Modern Hobby Guide, which is essentially like, the hobby for dummies, Hobby 101. And the intent here is to answer a lot of those.
Yes, I love
answer those questions, like, why has collecting become so popular? The economics of modern collecting. Why is it so expensive? Why is it so exciting? Right? Like, what have we seen over the last several decades? How do I know what type of collector I am? What is a box break? So many people don't know what breaking is. Like, how is breaking like gambling? And so we go into great detail here, and we touch on, pretty much everything from a neutral standpoint, right? Like, not in a way that's going to scare people away or preach that like we're anti-collecting or anti-breaking. And then we get even more granular as you go down here What does it mean to rip responsibly, right? You can go to our Rip Responsibly landing page, learn more about that movement. But we also have what's called the CMD Hobby Dictionary. And this is really intended for parents. So if their kids are using certain terms and certain,
this
is the most comprehensive hobby dictionary on the internet.
I love it.
Anything related to the hobby is in here. I've spent a long time compiling words. I constantly update it. And it's not just a hobby glossary. Like if you go down to the bottom, and it's easy to miss because it's such a long landing page, but there's collectors, MD, core terms, content, and resources. So these are terms we use in recovery, right? Abstinence, acceptance, advocacy, autonomy. Like that's just A, right? Like it goes into really, really great detail here. And I think this can be a really great resource.
Bells for me.
We both have had recovery, journeys. So, this is something that definitely hits home for both of us.
Definitely speaks all those words that you just said. Ring a lot of bells. So I
appreciate that. Have you seen, the way Rip Responsibly is integrated into live environments?
Is like the break mats that you're seeing so much more in the stand-up displays. And
exactly. Yeah, like C3 Grading is putting thank you notes with all their orders. We actually just started rolling it out. This is a boutique manufacturer called the Trading Card Hall of Fame that was created by a gentleman in the hobby named Brad Sauter. He's awesome. And he has this product. It's basically a repack product, but it's intended for people who don't care about the value, right? It's just like iconic reprints. And he has put the Rip Responsibly branding right on the wrapper and the boxes. And we're really hoping that, this starts to catch steam. And
this would be something I would love to have on our website.
Yeah, I mean, we would love to get you guys involved. I mean, I had conversations with some of the biggest players in the industry over at Fanatics Fest. And again, they were all so receptive, and we're gonna be adding more, but like we already have some of the biggest names on here, right? Like Card Ladder, Market Mover, Sports Card Investor, Cards HQ, obviously all Jeff Wilson entities, but like some big breakers like Paradise Card Breaks, Replay Sports Cards.
I'm recognizing a lot of these, these logos. I'm so proud of myself.
Yeah, these are all brands that have gotten behind the movement and endorse it in some capacity. And so, yeah, we'd love to get like father, like son involved in some way. So that's definitely something we can chat about offline. But yeah, I mean, I just think that this is exactly why these conversations matter. The goal isn't to scare parents away from collecting. The goal isn't to tell kids they shouldn't enjoy opening packs. The goal is to help families understand that today's hobby is it's different. It's fundamentally different than what it once was. The hobby is much bigger. There's so much more opportunity. And with that, there's a sense of responsibility to help shape a culture where, excitement and intentionality and all of that can coexist, right? Because if we get that right, we're not just protecting today's collector, we're protecting the next generation of collectors. So with that, we're going to transition over to our third segment, which means we are halfway through, which really I'd like to get into a little bit more detail on Fanatics Fest and the National and the West Coast Card Show and the growth and the future of the hobby. So one thing that really stood out to me throughout Fanatics Fest was just how much bigger the hobby has become. So if you compare today's collecting landscape to even 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's almost unrecognizable. Where do you think we've experienced the biggest changes?
I mean, I remember being a little boy going like mall shows, bro, where it was like the tables were just set up and, they're still around and everything like that. But, that was the show that I went to. So now these like fan experiences and like, it's just absolutely mind-blowing what has happened in just the last few years.
It really is. And what do you think is attributed to that?
I mean, whether you like him or you don't like him, Michael Rubin it's like the dude's brilliant, right? Like you hear his story as a child, and I truly believe he's the kind of guy that, you could challenge and say, okay, we're freezing your bank accounts. You have no money. And that dude would probably be a millionaire within like a few months.
There's no denying it.
There's things that he does that I don't agree with. And I'm not speaking, exactly, Michael. I'm speaking about Fanatics. There's just some things that I don't agree with. And there's some things that,
it's no lie what he has done to bridge the gap between athletes and collectors and the hobby. Because think about it this way. I know hundreds of sports fans. A fraction of them are in the hobby. But if you get the sports fans to say, oh, now, like, because it's kind of nerdy, I guess the card world is, you know, it had that stigma, especially, you know, years ago. If you can get them to see how cool it actually is, and now, you know, with their favorite athletes getting involved, it's really bridging the gap between the non-collectors and the collectors, and welcoming so many more people into the hobby. And I don't even think that the growth right now, I think it only can keep going up, because there's so many people that don't collect and aren't in the hobby that just don't know about it.
Yeah, it's lightning in a bottle, man. I mean, I think just bringing in the A-listers that showed up at this show was like mind-boggling, right? Like when you have Tom Brady, LeBron James, Serena Williams, I mean, Lindsey Vonn, like you name a sport, the GOAT of that sport was there. And then we get into entertainment and music, and like Logan Paul, Kevin O'Leary, and obviously Gary Vee and Justin Bieber. I mean, it's just like, it's insane the amount of attention this industry is getting. You know, it's incomprehensible. You can't compare it to any other industry. No other industry has gotten this type of media attention, really, right? And so it's only going to grow from here. Right?
You see, the news outlets are starting to.
He was in the airport last night, and I said, hey, I have to turn my phone off, because I went on to just like get a quick little scroll, and I was so overwhelmed by Fanatics Fest. I was like, I can't even look at this. It was like crazy.
And Desiree, you weren't even there.
I wasn't even there. And I said, like, this is bananas how I feel right now for something that I wasn't even a part of.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, and the FOMO is like what really.
Text message. I said, am I a dork for having FOMO of Fanatics?
Yeah.
Wholeheartedly, I have major FOMO. It just wasn't like, you know, it just wasn't financially responsible.
Ryan, I had FOMO, and I was there because there was so much happening at once, right? I'm at center stage watching, like, you know, the women in sports, or like the ownership within women's sports. And that was Tom Brady. I just mentioned a few of them. It was Tom Brady, Serena Williams, Lindsey Vonn, Candace Parker, and James Harden. And I was in the second row, 10 feet away from them. Like, it was surreal. But then, you know, I get a notification that Stephen A. Smith is interviewing Paolo Banchero, who's like one of my favorite players in the NBA, down in like whatever other stage. So as soon as that wrapped up, I sprinted downstairs to catch a glimpse of that. And fortunately I was able to, but there was just so much going on at once that like you feel like you're being pulled in a million different directions, and it's impossible to, you know, digest, to absorb everything. Right. And to your point about,
it really isn't even enough, to be honest, because I really felt like we worked Fanatics Fest, that show, like last year, like, and there's still things that I'm like, I know that we missed, and I'm like, it's crazy. It really is crazy.
Yeah, and to your point, the media attention, like ABC News did a really, really good segment on it, which I cited in the Daily Reflection that I published today, which was recapping my experience at Fanatics Fest. It's everywhere now, right? Like, and one of the silver linings is that we're starting to get national media attention too, as part of like the work we're doing. And so we just had a piece that published 2 weeks ago with Barron's, which basically taps into, you know, trading cards or the new lottery tickets, brother. It's gambling. And we were, this is the paywall, so I'm not logged in right now, so I can't show you, but we were featured in it, which was awesome. And then we have 2 more articles coming out in the next week or 2 with the Wall Street Journal and GQ. We were mentioned in the New York Times a couple months ago. So like, this is really starting to garner national media attention, which is, it's great. And it's helpful. And it's not in like a way that like, you know, it's about me or Collectors MD or growing my brand or creating clout or turning me into like a hobby celebrity. It's none of that. Like, I don't care one bit how many people watch my videos or how many followers I have on Instagram. I just care about helping the people that need the support, right? And so there are a lot of haters and naysayers and challengers and people who are saying, "Oh, Collectors MD has gone too commercial," and they're not in it for the right reasons. They're just in it to get a piece of the pie. I would combat those individuals every single day if it meant I was making a difference, making an impact for just one more person. Because when I see these people show up to these weekly meetings and access the tools, the resources, connect with other people who are like-minded, who are experiencing the same things and getting real help, the real help they need, and us being able to operate as like a bridge to professional networks of licensed clinicians, therapists, doctors, financial advisors, attorneys, depending on what kind of support they need, like that's the win for me, right? And so I'm grateful to these media outlets that have taken our message and helped us spread the awareness in a way that, again, will reach the people who not necessarily might need it, but just know that it's there, right? We like to call ourselves the hospital of the hobby. Hospitals don't, want to see people getting into accidents or showing up to the ER, but they're there to help those people that are inevitably going to end up needing that type of treatment, right? So that's what it's all about, and one thing I keep thinking about, especially during my experience at Fanatics Fest, was that the hobby is getting younger while simultaneously becoming more commercialized. Do you think that's something the industry is paying enough attention to?
I got to be honest with you, brother. Like all they're caring about is numbers right now. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any thought whatsoever on caring who joins the hobby as long as people do. And like, this is big business. They're billionaires, so they think a lot different than me. It's what that
is valued at $25 billion, and it's projected to be worth like $50 billion within like a year or two.
That's what I mean. It's like, I'm such a small pigeons guy. Like, it's just like they have a whole entire different concept. And I think, that's why they are who they are. Like I told you, I turn people away if they, act a certain way. Like they're not going to turn you away. They're just like, dollars. And, that's big business. And it's just, it is who it is. And, totally different mindsets from me and to that. I just want to digress and apologize. I just got hit that the boys are in full pads tonight, so that's why Desiree ran out because
it's all good.
I don't know if they have their football pants ready. So
Ryan, the name of this episode is Family First. So
yeah, exactly.
the kids always come first. Exactly. And if you got to run too, just let me know. We can cut it short. But
I'm good.
This has been an amazing conversation so far, and I'm so grateful that you guys are taking the time during your busy schedule. So from manufacturers and hobby shops to breakers, creators, marketplaces, everyone has an opportunity to influence culture. What kind of example do you hope the industry continues setting for young collectors?
Repeat that one more time. Let me think about that. Repeat how you just worded your question.
From manufacturers and hobby shops to everybody in between, the breakers, the creators, the platforms, the marketplaces, everyone has, an opportunity to really make an impact, have an influence on the culture. So what kind of example do you hope that the industry continues setting for younger collectors?
Using the right people on who children should look up to. One of my big, hills that I'll die on is I think it's disgraceful that Adrian Peterson is still putting product after he beat his child with a stick in the privates. I don't know how any company can still produce this guy's cards. So things like that. I think Sketch is a lousy person to have at Fanatics Fest for all of his history. Like these are what these kids look up to. They see these big followings. They see these big. You got to make sure that the right people are at these shows, and you have to make sure that they are good people and they're not just large followings, and they actually take their time out to make these kids feel special at these events.
so many athletes, you see them just brush, like last year with me in the games. These kids are literally reaching out like these are, they're godlike to children, these athletes and these superstars.
Hey, they're godlike to me.
And there's a little boy inside all of us, right? And myself included, when I was standing next to these guys, and still to this day, my kids just interviewed one of my all-time legends, Allen Iverson. So we got to go down and they got to interview Iverson, and I'm looking at this guy like, oh my goodness, like this is the dude that I like worship, So, but you want to see them be involved and be surrounded with good people too.
Absolutely.
And I questioned some of the choices. I questioned some of just because they can get a big number on their photo session, or they have a big following.
Yeah.
What
do you make of this? So at Fanatics Fest, they had the photo booth, photo opportunities. They do this at the National too, but it was kind of weird. When I went down there and I was just looking from afar, people were lined up at, each celebrity, each athlete's booth, and they had like a menu, and it was like Livy Dunn, X amount of money, right? Like Mariano Rivera, X amount of money, John Cena, X amount of money, like Anthony Volpe. Like, I mean, they had really, really top notch A-list celebrities, and then they had, some smaller athletes or influencers or social media stars. Like, they're charging people just to take a photo with them. Like, what do you make of that?
Dude, Rob Livingston, I think it's like J Bell. Yeah, he touched on this, and it was like, where the heck did they get some of these numbers? Like Brunson being 1,000, and then somebody else with millions of followers. I'm not into wrestling, like to the extent that I, know a whole lot. But like some of those have millions of followers, and I saw that they were like $100. It's like, where did that pricing come about? And like,
and who's getting paid? Like, it just, the whole thing was a little bit weird. It's like, if you run into one of those celebrities or athletes at Fanatics Fest and happen to, be able to take a picture with them, that's amazing. Like it's organic, it's core memory. But like when you're being charged to wait online to take a photo with these people, I don't know.
Did you ever think, like, this is a shout out, this is to Jalen Brunson right now, like to sit there and be like, wait, you're charging people $1,000 to take a picture of me? Like, how egotistical do you think that you are, or to be worth $1,000?
And it's unfortunate because people like Jalen Brunson, who I don't know him personally, but as a Knicks fan, like, seems like a phenomenal guy. These guys are just listening to their management and their agents and being told, like, you have to be here at this time, and they probably don't even realize, like, that they're exploiting fans in a way where it's like, yeah, you got to pay $1,000 to stand next to this person to get a photo. I don't know. It's like, to me, that felt very forced, and something that maybe they can
think about. This, for instance, I'm a dollars and cents guy, right?
Yeah.
Business is about, making money. This is how I support myself and my family. So I understand business. Last year, they averaged, I think they said the number was like 125,000 people came out to Fanatics Fest last year. This year, they upped the days, an extra day. And it was like $1,000 to go for all 4 days. So you're looking at $125 million right there on tickets. Maybe somewhere to take the numbers.
It apparently cost $90 million to put it on.
Precisely my point, Alex. They said it cost $80 to $90 million to put it on. So you already just paid $35 million off your. Why are you bending people over for the extras, the merchandise, things like that? Okay, I have a capitalist mindset. I don't complain about that stuff, But like $1,000 for a little boy to take a picture with his idol is ridiculous to me.
Right.
And I think it's ridiculous that they would even agree to do that. Like $100, okay, that sounds fair. A couple $100, yeah, sure. $1,000.
I would have loved to see one of the athletes, and it sounds like something Justin Bieber would do, given the fact that he gave away his winnings from the Fanatics games.
Shout out Bieber for that, man.
It's like if one of them stepped up and said, you know what, I'll do this, but only if you charge zero, right? Like, why didn't not one single athlete do that?
Bro, they are. Listen,
maybe they did, and then just were told no. Who knows?
Maybe, and I would love for that to be the case. But these people are so wealthy that like everybody that goes to that show, not everybody, but there's a majority of people that go to that show that, you know, the parents probably had to save up to go to that show. They made it a little summer getaway. That was their summer vacation.
Yeah.
It's just, dude, it's astronomical, and it's not a good thing, in my opinion, because there's so many average Joes out there that would have loved to experience certain things. But yeah, that's the one aspect of the hobby that, you know, I wish could change, is how expensive it is.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate. It just, you know, you hear so many people all the time say, like, I wish I could get into that, you know, that I wish I could do, but you know, they have responsibilities that come first.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're not even just talking about the product, right? Like the hobby boxes themselves, which cost astronomical numbers these days. We're talking about just the experience of being able to meet your favorite athlete as a 10-year-old and get a photo op or, you know, an autograph. Like, that's not something that I think should cost money, unless it was like a private event for that one celebrity or athlete and you had to pay to get in and it was a part of your ticket. To have to pay on top of the ticket to get into, you know, an opportunity like, I don't know. I couldn't agree more with that though. So Ryan, as someone who's built a platform around positivity and family, what responsibility do you personally feel when you know kids and parents are watching your content?
That I gotta walk the walk. You know what I mean? It can't all just be baloney. That's why, listen, brother, my wife and I, you know, we're still very much young at heart. We like to, you know, go out and party. We have adult streams that are adult only, where there is language. There is, you know, topics that children are, you know, should never be around.
Right.
We're adults. You know, we always say it's a Friday night at 9 p.m. usually our adult shows. And we always say it's like our escape from reality, where we put the kids to bed and then we get together and you know, maybe just complain about our week, complain about our kids, maybe talk good about whatever it may be.
Right.
You know, all different topics that, you know, children should never be around. And, you know, that's one thing that we're big on, because 99% of our other breaks are all kid friendly. We ask our, you know, members not to use language and just be mindful that there could be a father and son watching this break right now at home. And you don't want, you know, them to hear anything that, you know, some people, I got to be honest with you, we have very, very bad potty mouths, my wife and I. We curse a whole lot, but some people, that's very offensive. So you have to be mindful of your audience. So walking the walk, you know, when we go to our shows, you know, we try to be mindful of, you know, everybody around us. But I got to be real with you. There's times that, you know, Desiree and I have yelled at each other for whatever reason, or we had to scold the children. And it sounds so silly because I never envisioned this, but you are somebody in the public eye when you start to grow a bit of a following. And we've had people come up to us and go, that's why I love you, because you're not like, you know, we'll deal with this at home. I'm like, yo, knock it off right in front of everybody. So just being authentic, being organic. Like when you live stream as much as us, it's hard to fake it. You know what I mean, yeah. Bro? You're going to see me, all the good, the bad.
Yeah, but the authenticity is what's important, and that clearly shines through. So again, you know, I'm not just saying it to blow smoke. Like I really have the utmost respect for you and Desiree and the brand that you've built. Just continue staying true to you and, you know, being yourselves, because that's what, you know, that's what's gonna give you the long-term success. Really, I think, you know, people enjoy hanging out with you. They enjoy looking forward to that live stream, whether it be, you know, the family-friendly one or the adults only. Like they enjoy being a part of your community and your platform. So
it's humbling. It's humbling. It's overwhelming. It's but it's also been very much therapy for us. Desiree and I,
both, go to therapy, have been in therapy, couple, individual.
Yeah, it takes a toll for sure.
And it's therapy for us, our community, because they're very uplifting. Well,
Absolutely.
just over a year ago, probably over a year ago, Desiree, went into rehab. And our whole entire community was informed and it's not something that we've ever, been like openly discussed about, but it's not something we're ashamed of either, because it's like, hey, this is real life, bro. We're just a family trying to make it. It's stressful. It's a grind. But man, what a blessing to be able to, not to be weird, but like for God to be like, yo, I'm going to put you in this position that you can have somewhat of a voice. And
oh man,
the thing that Gary Vee said that like always stuck with me. It's like, you have 100 followers. You're like, man, I wish I had 1,000. And then I wish I had 10,000. And, our goal is, we want to hit 100K. Like that's every influencer's goal.
Of course.
But like the one thing that he said to me is like, stop worrying about that number, because if you have one person that listens to you, that's a crazy audience. And that hit me so hard to be like, wow, if one person's like, yeah, I resonate with that, or whatever it may be, it's pretty, empowering, dude.
Amen to that. I couldn't agree more. And that's, why I'm so passionate about the work I'm doing. I feel like this is my calling based on the fact that I've taken my lived experience, I've taken my pain, and I've turned it into purpose. And as strange as it sounds, one of the biggest silver linings of, going to rehab or entering recovery is that, gives you a chance to completely rebuild your life, right? Not necessarily just stop gambling or stop using, right? Before recovery, your world becomes incredibly small, right? Like for me personally, like my thoughts revolved around gambling, money, hiding things, chasing losses, and really just trying to get through the next day, right? Recovery forced me to slow down and rediscover who I was outside of my addiction. And along the way, I've had the pleasure, the opportunity to meet people that I never would have crossed paths with otherwise. I've built genuine friendships. I've learned from incredible counselors and therapists. I've become more self-aware. I've found a community of people who truly understand what I was going through. And those relationships have become some of the most meaningful in my entire life, right? And recovery also taught me, skills that apply far beyond just addiction, right? Like I've gotten better at communicating. I've learned how to regulate my emotions. I, know how to ask for help or to help others who are in the same position or situation that I was in find those tools and resources. I know how to set boundaries. I've really found purpose again. And ironically, one of the darkest chapters of my life has become the foundation for some of the best things that have ever happened to me, right? And none of us would choose to struggle with addiction, but if you're willing to do the work, recovery has the ability, it has a way of giving you so much more than it took away. Yeah. It doesn't just help you get your life back, and it can help you build a better one than you ever thought was possible, and ultimately use your experience to help others. So I have so much respect for the fact that not only did Desiree get the help she needed, but you guys are using the platform to spread awareness, to help other people, to, send a positive message, to set an example. All of that is it's just really
with you. Like the main thing that was so easy for her to make that decision, like, okay, Rye, you can tell people, was the messages, bro. Her DMs blew up. Like, Desiree, I had no idea that because she's larger than life. So when somebody's like that, we never hid things, but like, it was just, oh, they're on top of the world. And sometimes perspective isn't reality, right? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so many people were just like, I think I'm going to go get help now, or I've been there and supported her. It was so overwhelming that like I could get emotional right now. And then to digress on what you said about like the hobby bringing forth so many people. I mean, my best friend in the world
is Chris Gomes. He's my right-hand man, like father, like son & Chris. He was in one of my first breaks and was like, who is this nerd? I had a major fear of public speaking, and the hobby and live streaming has taken that away from me. But like, I used to be like shaken and green and like, and our relationship just started from that. And he's like a brother to me. So it's awesome. And there's so many of those other stories that I can say. I have a father figure in this hobby, Dr. Kevin McAlpin. I have a very dear woman friend, Erin Wise. I just was with a really good buddy of mine, Tommy Roche. He flew out to LA because he knew I was going to be there. And it's like this hobby, and my admins and my moderators, like they just became family, and we would have never have met. We would have never. And some of these people, we have nothing in common. I would have never have been their friend in the real world if it wasn't for this like little icebreaker. Like we both like sports, or we both like cards. And then you start to realize like, wow, I was really closed-minded before. Like, it's opened my mind to, being more accepting of other people, that maybe we are totally different, but then you have this common ground, and then you start to find out like, they're really not any different than me. They just, like my one boy, he collects pets that we got. And I'm like, if I knew that 10 years ago, I would have been like, you're a nerd, bro. Like,
That's the beauty of the hobby. It's like it brings people together from all over the world, from different walks of life, people who are otherwise completely different or might have completely different perspective or beliefs or values, whether it be religion or culture, right? Like we come together for, a shared interest, a common passion. And that's the beauty of it. And the same thing applies in recovery. Right? When you go to a GA meeting or an AA meeting or an NA meeting or rehab or a treatment center, and you meet other people that have experienced the same sort of pain, struggle, challenges that you have, even if they're completely different, you still have that mutual respect that you might not otherwise have, because it's like, you get it. You get what I went through, and, we can talk about that for days. And, one thing I always say, and it doesn't just apply to recovery, because I always say we can't heal in isolation. We have to heal in community, is that community and relationships and meeting people, that's the most important part of life, man. And not to get all like teary-eyed or emotional or sound cliche, but like, that's really the root of the hobby. Like that's what it should be all about. Not the next case hit or the next flip or the next PSA 10. It's about the friendship, man. It's about the experience. It's about finding that kid on the subway and seeing his eyes light up when he sees the base Aaron Judge insert. Like that's what it's about.
I know, bro. I know.
So if we were sitting here 5 years from now, what would you hope today's young collectors say they learned from growing up in this era of the hobby?
I love the confidence it brings. You're seeing, I feel like I'm a little bit older, you know what I mean? I'm in my mid 40s, where I'm seeing the younger generation glued more towards like the phones and the socials, and they're lacking communication skills and, things along that. But like these hobby kids,
My favorite subject.
they're just so stinking confident that I feel like they're going to be industry leaders in whatever business that they go into. They're sharp, and they're intelligent, and I think you're going to see a big difference on kids that grew up in the hobby compared to kids that didn't. With being successful in life, whatever avenue that is.
Right.
I can't talk more highly about what I think the hobby does for children if it's used properly.
This is one of my favorite subjects. I love to talk about.
Don't just come
I
in
love
and out of
it.
this show.
Stroll back in at the perfect time.
Yeah.
Wait, my mother-in-law lives with us downstairs, and she was like, I heard you. You sound so great and confident, and I'm so
I'd love to hear that.
I'm like,
I'm an only child of a single
thank
mother,
you
bro.
very much. She's like, you're so my daughter. I'm like, oh my God, here we
I can do no wrong in my mother's eyes.
That's funny.
That's beautiful.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, this is a really, really important subject, right? Because, it's not just about bringing people together, regardless of their religion, culture, political preference, and finding that common interest, common passion, like we were just talking about. It's about, the kids, the youth, and making sure that they're set up for success. And
I think, answer that question, that part, since you're so excited
Ask
about
it again.
Yeah, I'll ask it again. So if we were sitting here 5 years from now, what would you hope today's young collectors say they learned from growing up in this era of the hobby?
That's an action-packed. What would they have learned from growing up in this era? I would hope that they would learn communication skills. I hope that they would learn respect. I hope that they would learn
good one.
I don't know, flexibility, like how to, a little give, a little take,
Patience.
Like there's so many like little details, like when you find eye contact, the communication skills, I think to me they come up, because to me, there is nothing worse than trying to communicate with a child who isn't looking you in the eye, has no kind of like, I want a child who can engage with me. They're locked in. It's almost like their mind works on like a higher level. Do you know what I mean? I love that. I love what it can do for a child's mind.
I'm going to just illustrate something that happened this weekend. You don't even know the story yet, but it's just something that's pretty big with my teaching my sons. I was set up with a dear friend of mine, Ryan Curtis. I saw Sasquatch, and this boy came up with his father behind him. A group of boys with the fathers were behind them, paying attention. And he said, "Are you buying?" "Yeah, of course, buddy." He shows me his card. It has like $6, $7, $8 comps. It was a low end card. And I was like, "What do you want for this?" And he was like, "I don't even know what it costs." Right. So I show him on Card Ladder, everything. And I was like, "It's like $6, $7, $8, somewhere around there." I said, "How about $10? I'll give you $10 for it." And he was like, "Sure." We shook hands, walks away. A few minutes later, he comes back and says, "I would like my card back. Here's your $10. I think I can get more for it." And I'm telling you, Alex, I promise you, dude, there was no like old comps of $25 or anything. I'm a buyer for Arena Club, so they take that stuff and they do well with it. But anyway, I now was like, of course, I'm not going to argue with the boy. He was probably like a 12-year-old, but I said to the father, "Hey, I got to be honest with you, bud. You got to teach your kid when you do a shake hand, you do these sort of deals.
Yeah.
This is part of that growing up part
100%.
that like, turn them into a man." And that, like, if that was me with my sons, I'd be like,
that
"No,
would have never happened.
you already shook on that." So things like that I think,
what about the kid? We just had that situation with that kid.
You'll get me started on this one.
Okay.
There's a mother.
We go off on different. No, not that one. The other one who came back to you like, "Oh, remember at the last show we were at?" And he was like, "That card, blah blah blah." Remember?
Oh, the boys did a deal.
Yeah.
The boys did a deal, and the guy paid the boys out, and then it was a Saturday, Sunday show, and a comp came out on Sunday much lower than the deal that had happened on Saturday. And he got really disrespectful, and I'm a retired fighter, brother.
Situation.
That if I didn't just give the guy his money right there, it was going to escalate, and we were there for business. We were there for the media team.
But I couldn't believe it. I'm like, where is the ethical, moral compass right now? Like that someone would think that it's appropriate for 24 hours later.
People just try to take advantage.
Do you know what I mean? But that's how they were raised. Things like that were clearly acceptable. That is not acceptable.
No.
Do you know what I mean? So there has to be standards, and there's just so much.
Yeah.
Educating the youth.
Educating, yeah.
Educating the youth is everything. And again, like setting the right example is how we do that, right? It's on us as adults, even those of us that aren't parents, to make sure that when we're interacting with kids, we're doing it in a way that is serving them, right? Not just serving ourselves. And I hope that more vendors, more dealers, more sellers at these shows or online, start to really hone in on that. Yeah. And I think another great point that you brought up, Desiree, is like the eye-to-eye contact and the in-person communication skills. Like, it's kind of a lost art in a lot of ways because of the direction that we've gone in, not just as a hobby, but as society, where everything is social media, everything is digital, everything happens behind the comfort of, your screen at home, on the couch, or wherever. And, kids no longer like have to interact in person, right? Even when it comes to school, right? Like for a short bit, like during the pandemic, kids were going to class, going to school, like online. They were taking virtual classes. Like, it's just not the same as it once was. And as technology continues to develop and advance, like, we're only going to become more and more digital. So making sure that you're just prioritizing that in-person communication development is like, it's got to be paramount.
100%.
I mean, I don't think we're the best parents in the world. I think we're great parents, but like, one of the things that's like, I'm so proud of, I would bet every dollar we had to our name that when you meet my sons in person, the first thing they're going to do is walk up like this. They're going to walk up straight. And I'm like,
and a real handshake.
Dude, I'm like,
and a real handshake, a real firm handshake. I love that.
It makes me so stinking happy, because it's like, I was put on this earth to, be a husband and to be a father. And it's like, I want to raise boys into men. I'm a fatherless child. So it was like, that was my path. And it's like, what these kids are doing now. And that's what I try to teach, like, out there when we do the deals with the kids.
We'll correct other people's kids.
I'll be like, you have to finish the deal with the handshake, buddy.
Don't walk away when we're in the middle of it, like it's almost like it's your duty now. It's like your duty to implement these things. And I feel like
a handshake
shouldn't take offense.
Yeah. A handshake there's so much underlying tone in a handshake, right? Like, it exudes confidence, maturity, and that's really a really, really important thing to teach kids. And
simple, dude. It's crazy.
I've transacted with kids myself, and like, I met Jeff's kid. I met kids of my friends. Like, often they just they shy away, or like they give you like the dead fish handshake, and like, it's normal. It's like, that's just how kids are. But I think it's something that kind of gets lost in the shuffle and really needs to be prioritized. So I really love that you guys brought that up. And so, yeah, the hobby has never had more momentum. There are more collectors, there are more families, there are more businesses. There's just more opportunities than there ever have been. But growth by itself, when we're only focused on the bottom line, that just isn't enough. We also have to be intentional about the culture we're creating, because today's kids aren't just inheriting our collections. They're really inheriting the hobby itself. And the example we set today will help define what collecting looks like for years to come. They're really the future. So with that, we're going to transition over to our final segment, which is Rip Responsibly and Building a Healthier Hobby. So you have been incredibly supportive, and I can't thank you enough for supporting what we're doing with Rip Responsibly and just sending a positive message across the hobby. So for people hearing about it for the first time, what does the message mean to you personally?
I mean, just you have to, you can't just be all talk in this hobby. And a lot of people, unfortunately, in the influencer, stages are a lot that I've experienced. So for me, it's like, we started this business not as a business. It wasn't supposed to be a business. It was a father ripping some cards with his son, and it just became that. So it never was about making a dollar, this hobby for us. It really wasn't. So as it grew, obviously that's what it became to. But I always wanted to keep those, core values of like, this wasn't supposed to be that. So how do I go about making that way and still remaining true to who we are as parents and everything like that? And it's a struggle, bro. It's hard. Trust me. it's not something that I can say like we're doing seamlessly, but we make mistakes and you learn by them and everything like that. Like ripping responsibly, like being educated to what your kids are doing as the parent. Like you have to be aware of what's going on. I don't think many parents like Desiree didn't know in the beginning, like how valuable some of this stuff is, how expensive some of this stuff is. One of the things, I know it's not part of ripping responsibly, but like I'm super anti coin flip for kids. And I'll be honest with you, I've done them. Like I even though I'm against it, but kids will come up and be like, they'll beg you to do them. And it's like, even my kids want to do them. Things like that, they kind of make me like, cringe a little because, I mean, I've gambled. I'm a gambler. You gamble. Like you're implementing some things a little too early to children. Like they still got to be kids, man. Yeah. And they're growing up way too fast. That's some of the stuff I don't like about the hobby, how it does make you mature a little bit faster to some things. But it's hard, man. And there's no book on this. There's no, XYZ, do this or don't do that. You just kind of find your way. Yeah. And as long as you have some sort of standards and you try to attack it with the right mentality, and then you learn, you know what I mean? You're educating the community. You have so many people that are big voices already aligned with you that are educating the community and doing things the right way. And then it's just, practice what you preach, bro.
Yeah. Well said. And, when it comes to Rip Responsibly, it's not just about CMD or our branding or movement itself. Like I've had plenty of conversations with breakers and hobby shops owners that have told me that they already enforce ripping responsibly or collecting responsibly or buying responsibly, and that they don't need our messaging or badging or branding, and they're doing it on their own. And that's great. I love to hear that. We want to make sure it's not just about like growing CMD and growing our brand or following or anything like that. It's about spreading that positive message. And if you're already doing it, that's amazing. I'm super, super grateful to hear that. But when it comes to providing like that call to action, that tangible resource or destination or community where people can have access to the weekly meetings and the tools, the resources, the modern hobby guide that I shared with you earlier, the dictionary, like all of that, I think it's nobody else is doing it in this space. Nobody else has stepped up in terms of creating like a community or a destination that can provide the support. So, it's one thing to say, hey, make sure you rip responsibly. It's another thing to say, if things start to spiral out of control, here's where you can go to get the help you need.
And noticing it, like you have to, you see the red flags, right. You have to be completely oblivious to be sitting in my seat to not see the red flags with certain, things that happen. And, I hope that more large breaking companies could, be that way. Some of these numbers out there are astronomical that like, these 50 case breaks. It's like, listen, I know that there's some seriously wealthy people out there, but like you see what the costs are to get in some of them, $25, $50, $60,000. You're like, dude, it's a little bit, it's crazy, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, trust me, I hear you.
True.
Do you think somebody can be passionate about, ripping packs, chasing big cards, and enjoying the excitement while still creating healthy boundaries?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Absolutely, because we're doing it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Of course. It's the same thing. Let's put it this. It's the same thing, with like drinking. Some people can handle it. Some people can't. If you go to dinner and you have a glass of wine, or you go out on a Saturday night and you have a couple, you're not a bad person. Yeah. Some people can't, though. Exactly. So you have to understand who you are too.
Yeah.
It's all about balance, and that's
balance.
It's the B word.
Desiree and I are all about balance. I told you we like to still go out and party.
It's the hardest thing to achieve.
Yeah. No, I love to hear that. Rip responsibly isn't necessarily about collecting less or even spending less. It's just about being more intentional.
Yes.
Right. Finding that balance, making sure that you're staying within your means. And that's totally possible. It's totally possible to engage with this hobby, with collecting, in a way that brings value to your life, as opposed to, taking away from it. What role do you think parents play in helping their kids develop those healthy habits from the very beginning?
I mean, I guess it's as simple as, when they start as babies, on what you determine on, what is right and what is wrong and what your core family values are going to be.
Leading by example.
I told you in the beginning, I said, Desiree and I have, we use a lot of language, dude. I'm not going to lie. Like, we are who we are. And our kids, when they're in the house, sometimes will, not sometimes, they curse a little, dude. So,
yeah,
it's who we are. It's an Italian household. Some people would look at that and be like, wow, you guys are awful as parents. But I'll tell you what, dude, they're really respectful. They are straight A students. Every report card is your child is my favorite in the class. So, it's setting your standard. We don't give a shit if they curse in the house. Obviously, they know not to in public, but we care about who they are as people. So it's all about laying the groundwork on what's important for you and your family. And Desiree and I have a very clear vision on what's important for the Knowles family. And really, that's all we care about, bro.
I love to hear that.
If you don't like it, it's not your family. You don't have to. This is how we're doing things. So,
yeah. So for parents listening today who may be wondering how to keep collecting fun without letting it become all consuming, what would you want them to hear?
Talk to your kids, have the conversations, communicate with them, and make it relatable in ways like outside of the hobby. I think it's like connecting it, like, oh, like such and such happened with your friend. How can we, like, using life lessons to kind of like navigate through the hobby as well, if that makes any kind of sense.
Yeah, absolutely does.
Get involved with your kids, bro, knowing what they're doing. We know everything our kids do, whether they're in the house or without the house, within reason. Obviously, they're growing up and keeping some stuff, but being involved means know who your kids are dealing with. We just moved from South Jersey, from South Jersey.
Big learning curve here.
Royal Cards in South Jersey, the Riz brothers. They're two guys. Royal Cards is a card shop. The Riz brothers, they're just guys. They do a lot of content with children, is why I'm bringing them up. And they treat kids amazing. So parents should be, who are you following? Let me see what this follower is about. Who is this influencer? Just being involved with your kids and knowing what they're doing in this hobby.
Yeah.
You
taking the time to really see what's going on. It's not just cards. It never is just what is on the surface. And you would be a naive parent to think that. Dive in deeper.
Yeah. I don't know where I saw this, but I remember seeing a video about like a parent, I think it was a dad who was trying to, resonate or connect with his son. And the advice that he was given was like, just choose a player, choose an athlete that he likes and just start following him and, become a fan, right? That'll give you an opportunity to open up the door for a conversation and have a shared passion or a shared interest, right? Like something like that is all it takes, right? Like if you're getting involved with the hobby with your kid, it's mutually beneficial for everybody because you might end up having a little bit of fun, but you're also at the same time keeping an eye on them and making sure that they're staying safe and, they're protected and they're not being taken advantage of. So, it's also not the end of the world for like parents to get involved in a positive way where they're not necessarily being like overly protective, but they're having fun just like you guys do.
It's made Ryan really, really happy. I think it's made our family feel more full. There's a lot more to it. It really is. So I definitely like that.
Yeah.
Sure.
If there were one habit you wish every young collector learned early on, what would it be?
To collect for the love of it and not for the value of it, especially for the young collectors. And I think that's why my children love the hobby so much, is because that was the the starting point. They fell in love with it. And like I said, they are at that point now that they are, doing the value stuff. But I think if, the cards that we PC and everything, if I turned tomorrow and said, oh, this one that, is worth thousands was only worth $10 anymore, I think they would still love it.
Like, they wouldn't bat an eyelash.
So that sort of groundwork where you still love the card because the moment that card has, whether we pulled it together or I remember we were at this shop or we hit it with this breaker, like, building those memories is what has the value inside of our PC rather than the actual dollar amount, attached to them.
Yeah. Despite some of these challenges, and obviously there are inevitably going to be a handful that we've talked about today, what gives you the most optimism about where the hobby is heading?
Conversations like this, platforms like this, the page that you showed me, I'm like, I never even knew that there was anything like that available. Like, I'm still like a dinosaur. Like, can you do a PowerPoint presentation? What is breaking? Like, this is where my mind goes. Like,
yeah,
people need to know, what I mean? They just need to know.
It'd be so great, Ryan, if and this is something we could talk about offline, but I'd love to, take that modern hobby guide and maybe I've done it a million times. We have Collector Charles, who's one of the hosts of our podcast, but I'd love to bring in more voices and more, stakeholders.
Questions.
I would love to collaborate on a video where you can
easily.
Yeah, and then we can upload it to the YouTube channel and promote it together.
Passionate about too, so I feel like it would be really, really.
Listen, as a content creator, you're always looking for more ideas on content.
Yeah.
Listen, some of our ideas, they're terrible, but you don't just wake up with these great ideas all the time. So that's something easy for us to do with content.
Love it.
To digress on what you said is what makes us, feel like the industry is going in the right way and things like that, where Desiree took the lead with that. I do want to say, because I think that there's so many people, industry leaders, that are setting great examples. Brian Friedman, talent, amazing to me, content creator. Jay Moslehi, Mojo is just these guys are doing it right. They're treating kids like their own. And they're showing, they're just showing how special it is through, transactional content and things like that. So there are some people in this hobby,
absolutely,
industry leaders, that are really elevating the game and providing something special. I just hope to be mentioned amongst some of the greats. You know what I mean? So if we can do our part in that, then I think it's a positive, bro.
Yeah, I mean, I've had some pretty incredible people in the hobby on this show. Jeremy Lee, Jeff Wilson, Ty Wilson, Eddie Whitner is the founder of C3 Grading. Chris Hoge is the founder of Card Ladder, just to name a few. All fantastic industry leaders, and are setting the right message and doing it the right way, and looking out for the kids. And I certainly, based on this conversation alone, would 100% put both of you in that category. So kudos to both of you for just spreading the positive message and getting behind the work we're doing and making sure that you're looking out for, not just your customers, but the next generation. So last question, what message would you leave collectors, parents, families, and the hobby as a whole?
Something that we are just so big on is do it together.
That's so annoying.
I was in LA this weekend. Obviously, I said that multiple times, and I was without my family. And Desiree's my videographer. She's my social media content manager, business partner. I didn't feel whole, bro. It's not who we are. Like I said, we've been attached at the hip for 15 years.
And we were struggling here too. You know what I mean? Even me having all three of them and us being together, it was just.
So if sports isn't your thing and you're a mom like Desiree is, just give a shit. Just be involved with it.
Integrate it into your family dynamic in some way. There is always a way. If there's a will, there's a way, and you need to find it.
Yeah.
And do it
together. It's all about being together and being a family.
Yeah.
It's the most important thing.
Yeah. Well said. Yeah, I think that's such a great way to look at it. And, the future of this hobby, it's not determined by the biggest cards or the biggest collections or, the highest comps or, even the biggest events. It's determined by the people. It's determined by the families, right? The families that are introducing kids to collecting for the very first time and doing it the right way. It's determined by the creators, the businesses, and the community leaders who choose to lead by example. And it's determined by people who, just continue building a hobby that adds to people's lives, not one that quietly begins to take away from them. And that's what Collectors MD and Rip Responsibly is all about. And we're 1000% on the same page, just in terms of our values, our morals, what we want to see. And, I can't thank you both enough for being on the show. So we are over 2 hours. You're going to be one of the longest episodes to date, which is amazing. Just to put the cherry on top, we got to finish with the rapid fire round. This is a part of the show that I've been thinking about removing, just because once we get through 4 segments, I've already asked so many questions. It's like just another series of questions. But the purpose of this is just to be, they're quick hitters. It's like rapid fire. You answer quickly. Some people end up, answering like long-winded, drawn out answers. So I just asked, try to keep your responses short and sweet. So we're just gonna fire through these. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite part about collecting with your kids?
The bond.
What's one life lesson every child can learn through collecting?
Patience.
What's the biggest misconception people have about today's hobby?
It's old and washed up.
Family favorite collecting memory?
We hit a 101 Jalen Hurts gold bar together, and I'll never forget it, me and Beckham.
One habit every young collector should practice?
Do your research.
And lastly, if your kids could only remember one thing you taught them about collecting, what would you hope it would be?
Have fun.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say.
Have fun.
Have fun.
Well done. Ryan, Desiree, this has been such a meaningful conversation. One thing I really appreciate is that today's discussion wasn't simply about cards. It was about family. It was about parenting. It was about values. And it was about recognizing that collecting can be one of the most rewarding hobbies in the world when we approach it with the right mindset. One of the things I've admired most about what you've built is that you never made collecting solely about the cards. You made it about the memories, the relationships, the lessons, the time spent together. And that's something our hobby needs more of. As collecting continues growing faster than ever before, it's conversations like this that remind us what really matters. Not every kid is going to remember the biggest card they pulled, but they will remember who they were with when they pulled it. They'll remember the conversations, the laughs, the road trips, the card shows, the trade they finally worked out. And those are the memories that last. For those listening, if today's conversation resonated with you, please know that Collectors MD is here as a free resource for collectors and families looking to build healthier relationships with collecting. We host free weekly peer support meetings every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern, along with our Thursday meeting, Unboxed, powered by Collectors MD in partnership with the Problem Gambling Coalition of Colorado. You can learn more, explore our educational resources, and connect with our growing community by visiting collectorsmd.com. Be sure to subscribe to Collectors MD on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and all major podcast platforms to catch future episodes of the Collectors Compass, Behind the Breaks, and Collectors MD features. As always, thank you to All Touch Case for sponsoring today's episode. Make sure to visit alltouchcase.com and use code CollectorsMD for 15% off your order. Finally, if you'd like to support our mission and help expand peer support meetings, educational programming, outreach initiatives, scholarships, and research through the CMD Foundation, you can make a tax-deductible contribution through our LOHAS Foundation page, linked in the description below. I'm Alyx Efron. This is the Collector's Compass, reminding you to collect with intention, not compulsion. We'll see you next time.